And I think that's one of the signs that people don't realize is that when you suddenly look like you can run and run and run and run, that's if it wasn't like that before, then watch out, because that's the fact that cortisol has hit the limit and you are running on cortisol all the time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another call. So today we have Jane with us, and we're going to talk about burnout. But let me tell you a little bit about our guest before we jump in. So Jane Bromley had a great job that she really enjoyed. She delivered great results and did a lot of the exercise, the hobbies, everything that she enjoyed, right? And yet she totally missed understanding the science and she burned out. In fact, it took her years to get well again. It wiped out her savings and forced her to have to rebuild her life from scratch. This entire experience to Jane it led Jane, I'm like getting all this because I just want to get excited with the conversation. So this all led Jane to learn, there we go, how to love every day of her life and found ways to have great energy again every day and even now. So Jane now travels extensively. She's working online, coaching, and helping people who are running on fumes like she used to be, struggling with that mental overload and living all the signs of burnout. As long as they're determined to make and do and have well-being in their life again, she's available to help them because she doesn't want others to go what she went through. And that is why she's with us today. So Jane, thank you so much. And I'm sorry I completely butchered the intro. I just really want to get started with the conversation.
Good, you did well. You did it well. You did it well.
So tell us a little bit about this story. I mean, what was the burnout? What happened? And how did you help yourself?
Okay, so there's lots of questions in there. So if I'm going to be honest, I think what happened is I'd actually burnt out twice before. And I think this time I thought I'd put sort of things in place to make it better. So this time I made sure I did lots of sport, lots of things, and that I got that balance right. What I didn't know is I didn't know the symptoms to look out for. And therefore, when I was working 50 plus hours really intensively each week, and I was doing sport and activities 4 nights a week and twice at the weekend. And let's just pay attention to what I was doing at the weekend. On a Saturday, I was riding a horse or actually eventing the horse. And on Sunday, I was racing dinghies. So this was, as you can tell, this was full on. And I think that's one of the signs that people don't realize is that when you suddenly look like you can run and run and run and run, that's if it wasn't like that before, then watch out, because that's the fact that cortisol has hit the limit and you are running on cortisol all the time. There's other symptoms to look out for as well, but I did notice symptoms that I can share, but I didn't realize that I thought I had no choice. Like I think most people think they have no choice, and they think that, which is actually a load of rubbish that we're telling ourselves. But the reason is you get the prefrontal cortex that is continually feeling stressed, and it's talking to the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, and they are telling your adrenal glands cortisol, adrenaline, and eventually it gets the old part of your brain into sympathetic mode, which is known as fight or flight. But the problem is it's not just a one-off. You get stuck there. So, and that, okay, everyone knows the terminology, but that means that your body thinks that your life is under threat. So it causes you to want to run. It causes you to not want to sleep. It causes you to be full on. It causes you to get irritable. It causes you to snap at people. It causes you, when you wake up in the morning, your stomach sinks that's all coming from the fact that your biology is saying alert, alert, alert. And I didn't realize any of those things. So here
And
was
it's
me. Go on.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say it's interesting you said that because so many of us are like, no, but I feel like I have to do this and I have the energy for it. So it's not exactly we have the energy, it's the adrenaline that's pushing that energy. I had never seen it
Yes.
that way.
Yes, if you feel like it's a forced energy, if you feel like you're pushing, if you feel that you're that there's actually a part of you that's going, oh, I just wish we could slow up, but there's another part of you that's just driven and driven and driven, then watch out because your nervous system is scrunched, it's uptight, it's really tight. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize, I did, looking back on it, there were loads of symptoms and there were loads of things. I was irritable with people. I was feeling tense all the time. I was on edge all the time. I was wired. And so I look at that, but the one day I didn't wake up. One day I slept for 16 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I should have twigged because several months beforehand at Christmas, I'd had a few days holiday, and afterwards I slept all night on the ferry, and then I stopped in my car for a quick half hour extra until it got light and woke up 4 hours later. So the signs are there, but I'm going to be honest, I was too scared to see them. But the problem was that when I didn't wake up after the 16 hours, it took me years to get better. I couldn't, even in the remaining 8 hours, I wasn't able to do anything. And I had
Mm-hmm.
to stop my job. I had to rebuild my life from scratch. And the doctors couldn't help. Everyone thinks you might be able to take a pill, but my doctor said, I'm really sorry, there's nothing we can do. Nothing has been found to help
Mm-hmm.
burnout. And
Wow.
and it took years and I changed everything. And what savings I had, I blew on trying to get well again. So
Right.
not only was it years of not working, but it was years. And you might think that burnout doesn't have to be that dramatic, but I think it's because I've done it twice before, and therefore what happened is I put things in place to try to get round it, and I actually just made it so when it hit the third time, it just went a lot deeper.
I have a question for you. I have two questions, but I want to address this one first because I just had a interesting aha as we're talking, as you're talking. So let's start with the logical one. Define burnout. I'll ask my question after that, but define burnout because I think so many of us are so used to what you just said, that adrenaline, that run, that, and even though I have to push myself to keep going because I have to, we push our bodies. So define
Yeah.
burnout.
So what you've just described as I have to push myself, that is just a sign that you're really close to burning out. Okay.
Mm,
If you look online, if for the 12 stages of burning out, there's a really good chart that you can find, okay, that you can look at. But defining burnout is basically when your body gets to the point where it stops producing cortisol. So you literally cannot get out of bed. So that was the extreme case. But even before when it happened, it stopped me for a few weeks at a time, but it didn't stop me for as badly.
right. Okay.
And and the real reason I'm concerned for so many people is 48% of people who are working in the Western world say that they are burning out every year.
Right.
And so, but even if you just burn out in a small way, I'm not sure that you ever totally heal. And what we don't realize is it's quite easy to skip it, but we don't realize that. We can avoid it, but it's almost as if we've become a bunch of something, lemmings really, all
Mm-hmm.
following each other off the edge of the cliff and thinking, my boss tells me I've got to work more, I've got to work harder, so I just have to do what he says. as opposed to that is the ultimate lack of self-love because you are damaging your health. And
Right.
so it's time to believe in yourself, and it's time to say, no, there has to be a way that's not going to damage me. And
Right.
then, in addition, sorry, I get excited about this. In addition to all of that, the other thing is when you're stressed, so the stress and the busyness together are what lead to the burnout. But when you're stressed, your productivity doesn't just reduce a little bit, it drops off a
Mhm.
cliff. So you think that you have to keep on pushing yourself because that's what your old brain's telling you, that fright and flight is telling you. But actually, you're now having to work a stack harder just to hit the same level of performance that you used to when you weren't in this situation.
Right. And it's interesting because, okay, so my actual question that's going to follow that up is what you just said. The boss is telling you you have to work more. But from the things that I do, sometimes our boss is our own thinking. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
us pushing ourselves. And then my
yeah.
original question was that burnout. That's why I asked you to define burnout. So I wrote it down and you just said the stress plus the busyness. Okay, here's a question for you. Let's say we've spent the last 5 years personally, but no business or nothing, just personally, the last 5 years trying to get our life together. And we're constantly, this didn't work. I'm going to try this. This didn't work. I'm going to try this. This didn't work. I'm going to try this. So we're in that stress and in that busyness. But that can also lead to the same burnout, can it not?
Oh, totally. A cousin of mine looked at what I've been doing, and he says, "Jane, you're on the crest of a wave. You're radiant. Your energy is so good." And he says, "I'm trying to push myself harder to catch up. I'm trying to get to the crest of the wave." And I came back to him and said, Don't. That's the definition of pushing yourself into burnout. And we think it's out of our control, but actually it's our own mindset saying, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I have to just work a little harder. And we have much more control than we allow ourselves. Did I
Mhm.
answer your question?
It does because, and the reason I wanted to bring it up and talk about it is because many of us tend to think of burnout as professionals, as business, as corporate, but we can burn out in our lives. I mean, a mother can burn out of patience of this and that, of taking care of all the kids in the house and the cooking and just the teaching and the school. A person can burn out in so many different ways. And yet I think, or at least I literally personally think that people consider burnout only when it comes to business and they're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to burn out, I don't work in corporate. And that's not the thing. I mean, so many of us are doing so many different things, what you just said, trying to push ourselves to do something and get better and do this, and it's taking that time. So now I ask you, what can a listener do to see, okay, I feel that I get it, something's like kicking inside me that this is possibly what I'm feeling. What's a recommendation that you can give them to actually be able to pause and say, okay, this is what I can do to start calming down? Because it is a process, right?
Yes, it's a very good point. I'll just mention something. It's not just the mothers, it's well before that. Children at school are burning out now. And part of the
Mhm.
reason they're burning out is because they're seeing us all, us adults, setting the example and they're pushing themselves too hard. So, whatever situation you're in doesn't have to be a corporate anywhere. So, the thing is, first of all, start with the knowledge that while you're stressed, your productivity is crashing. Okay. So that thing I mentioned before. And then say to yourself, okay, so if I absolutely believe this, if I was going to believe in myself, if I was going to make sure that I never burn out and I started looking after myself, what you would do is your body craves pauses. It craves time just stopping, okay? Even if it's just 30 seconds at the end of a telephone call, 30 seconds at the end of sending an email, 30 seconds at the end of an action, 30 seconds, or even a few seconds. If you can't do 30 seconds, just pause. And you're going to, if you need it, you're going to enjoy it so much, you're just going to go on, oh, yes, please.
Right.
But the thing is, your sympathetic nervous system is going to take some encouragement, some persuasion that your life's not at risk. Okay, so doing it, and that's why I suspect many of people here have gone on stress reduction, stress management courses, and it's worked for 5 minutes, and they're like, well, that didn't last very long, did it? And that's because they don't understand the biology, and your nervous system is stuck in this. You have parasympathetic mode and you have sympathetic mode. Okay, so sympathetic is the fight or flight. So what you need to do is stop multitasking. It's massively overloading you, and your effectiveness is much, much less. It was a really bad thing we would talk there. Okay, do the pauses and do them every time. Notice what your body's saying. If your body's saying, oh, then give it its pauses, give it its stops. Go and just breathe. And it's just a few seconds at a time. And then ask yourself, sit down and say, what would I like my day to look like? What would allow me to feel that actually this is in flow? What can I do? So for instance, how often would you pause? Okay, how long would you stop for lunch? Okay, what bad habits have you got at the moment, for instance, not stopping for lunch or rushing all the time? What bad habits would you want to stop? Okay, and say to yourself, what would I get really excited about? Because that's one thing I learned when I had no energy at all. The thing that boosted my energy and will boost yours is doing things that you fancy doing. I don't know why, but if you ask yourself, what do I just fancy doing now? Okay, and if you do that, it's like gold dust. It's like magic dust. It gives you and it's it's almost like our soul lives for that. And it's like a healing agent. Okay, so the pauses, noticing your body, and also asking yourself, what would I enjoy now? And then one thing that really helped me, when I was in my really worst situation, was breathing out for longer than you breathe in. So maybe breathe in and then, and it says to your nervous system, all is well, all is well. And you can also say to yourself, to your nervous system, it's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna be okay. Give yourself some calm, give yourself some virtual hugs. Okay. And to be honest, it will take your nervous system a while to be convinced. So you might want to do have you heard of alternate nostril breathing? You might want to do some things because your vagus nerve, which is linked to your nervous system, it's tight. It's going to take a while to calm it down. But those things will start helping you. And until you decide that to stop running and stress, which come together as you are pushing yourself too hard, it causes your body to go into stress. Okay, and as you're ignoring your body's signals, it causes you to go into stress. So until you choose to live in a way with more pauses, with more kindness, with more of the breathing out, with etc., then you're going to consistently find that your that your energy is low, that your productivity is low, and therefore you can't find enough hours in the day to do
Right.
everything.
Right. What about for the people that say that they literally live? Because I love that you just said that it's a decision and you have to choose to want to be different.
Yeah.
Because when you said that, that's the reason I'm saying this now. I know of people that they're like, I do better and I excel when I'm under pressure and when I do this. And so it has to be a decision for them, because does everybody experience the symptoms in a similar way? Because I'm thinking, how do they actually realize they're borderline on almost physical stress burnout, but they don't
Yeah.
mentally recognize it because they actually think it's doing them good? Does that make
And
sense?
that was me too. That's why I was doing so much. I mean, I was competing on a horse, I was competing
Mm-hmm.
on, so I like challenge. And I think all my clients like challenge, but then it got heavy. So when you start to notice that you're feeling heavy, okay, when things like your stomach drops in the morning. I had one person, she's a marketing director, she's exactly the sort of person, and she says, I cry before I go to work every Monday morning now. And I don't think you're necessarily going to feel that, but you will feel your stomach dropping when you wake up in the morning. Okay. And when you've noticed that the tension, it's a constant tension. So it's changed from the lightness. It's changed
Mm-hmm.
from the fun of it all. It's changed from, yay, this is good, to pushing, to tension, to snapping at people that you love, that you never normally snap at. Also, I used to have lots of twitches, okay? And I was much
Mm-hmm.
more serious. It was hard to laugh as much as I used to. So I thought I was still full on. And I loved the challenges. And the other one I get is, but I've put so much into my career, I can't slow up, okay? I can't slow up because I'm scared that it will all fall apart. Now, go back to what I said before, when you are stressed, your productivity is much lower. So and this I think is it's been one of the hardest things for me to confront. It's the fact of that panic voice inside you saying, I'll lose it. That is because you're in fight or flight. You're stuck in fight or flight. You are making every decision from fear,
Right.
as opposed to ask yourself, if I could live my life how I really wanted to, confident that it would happen without me having to overexert myself, and being able to just do what I feel like when I feel like it, and still enjoy the challenge and still enjoy the fun of it all, what would I do? And if
Mm-hmm.
that's different to the busy, 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 okay, if you're probably enjoying the buzz of rush, 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 but there'll be this heaviness, there'll be this
Okay.
tension. And it's coming from a place, that's what I noticed. It's coming from a place of needing to prove myself. It's coming, as opposed to the fun and the challenge, it was coming from a pushing myself too hard because I needed to get there. It was important to get there. And to be honest, although I thought my health was really important, it got to the point, well, to hell with my health, I'm going to bloody well get there. And that was because I was in their sympathetic mode.
Mm-hmm.
I was
And
not making good decisions.
that's what I was gonna say. It's so interesting that we don't recognize, okay, this isn't a good decision, and yet we're still like a 2-year-old that we're like, but I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna do it because I want to achieve this and I want to do it. And what you just said, it's like the proving myself, and we literally do push ourselves in so many different ways. And that's why my question at the beginning had been that, it's not just a corporate job, it's in everything. We push ourselves to be better at everything, or we compare ourselves to other people. So we push ourselves and we forget to take care of ourselves. And burnout is literally that. It's not taking care of ourselves because we're so busy doing all these other things, including the stress and the worry and the actions and the goals and the, it's coming back down to self and saying what you just said. Are these healthy decisions for me? What do I really want to experience? But I have to say, I absolutely loved it and I wrote it. You have to persuade your mind because it's
Yeah.
true. The mind will be like, what are you taking a break for? You have a next call and you have this and you have that. What do you mean 30 seconds? You don't have 30 seconds.
Yeah, and if you're thinking like that, you are stuck in fight and
Mm-hmm.
flight. You
Right.
absolutely are. And you're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. And the thing is, it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to thrive. You're supposed to have energy. And you're supposed to wake up in the morning excited about the day ahead. And if you're snapping at your children and then cursing yourself because you're snapping at them, it's not because you're a bad person. It's because you've prioritized everyone else above you. And then when you're cracking at the seams, you're then giving yourself a hard time. How unfair is that?
Yeah. But we don't notice it. And that's the thing. That's exactly the thing. Or we notice it, but we don't think there's anything to do. It's just like, oh my God, I have to change, puts also more stress on the, now you have one more thing to do, which is change.
Yes. So it's like driving a car on fumes. It's like you don't put the right fuel in the car. If the car stopped running or ran really badly, you'd go on. Of course, I didn't give it the right fuel, but you expect yourself to run on fumes
Mm-hmm.
constantly, despite the fact that you're pushing yourself all the time. And then you criticize yourself when you don't get it right. And it makes no logical sense. And it's because you're in the fight or flight.
No, I absolutely, and I agree. And it's so like when you talked about the lightness and the heaviness, like with me and my clients, I also use that because it's something that maybe not everybody uses the words, but when we recognize it, it is that feeling. It's kind of like, oh, this feels so good and this feels free, and I enjoyed it versus you're like your client. I'm crying to work every morning. That's a heavy feeling. We can tell the difference between that. And I think if we recognize and learn to really connect with our bodies and what are we actually feeling and not just going. I think that's part of what it is as well.
Yeah. And the thing is, once someone is very close to burning out, telling them to be as opposed to do, they can't. They can't do that. It's too much of a step. But telling them that they can take a 30-second or even a 3-second pause on a regular basis, that they can just about manage. And they might need to do something to remind them because they'll get so caught up in what they're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
but start treating yourself with some love. And one of those things is to actually love your body. Your body is shouting at you. It's saying, please, please slow down. And it's incredibly intelligent. And that's hard to believe when cortisol levels are so incredibly high. But for
Mm-hmm.
heaven's sake, are you being kind to yourself? Are you treating yourself the way you'd in fact, are you living the way you'd like to see your children live? Because if
Mm-hmm.
not, if you would be horrified to see your children living, then that is the example you're setting them as well. And it's a really, many women that I speak to, they are scared to make the change for themselves. But when they realize that they're making the example they're setting for their children, they're like, this is changing. This is changing now. I do not want my children. And then they suddenly go, wow, I didn't realize how the bad decisions I was making until I saw the impact it would have on the ones I love.
Right. Because it's that shift that you help them make. It's
Yes.
when we see things differently and when we're able to have somebody like you that says, look at this way or see this way or have you thought about this way, and we have that shift, then we start recognizing, oh my God. And that happens with like literally the mind shifts, the beliefs, like all these different things. So speaking of which, I know we're running out of time. where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you and the work that you're doing?
Okay, so um, on Facebook, I actually post about my travels as well there, and about the fun that I have on a regular basis. So if you look for Jane.Bromley, Bromley .90, okay, you'll find me there. So and if
Perfect.
you can, if you just type in Jane Bromley, you will see someone all in red. I like red, and so you'll see a picture of me there. And there's loads of, it's, I don't know, it's all about the fun of living. So
Perfect. Beautiful. And one of the things, I will put all the posts and all the links down below in the show notes, but one of the beautiful things we didn't talk about, which we actually connected, is that you are a traveling nomad and you are everywhere, just like well, you beat me. You're more everywhere than I am. But it's that, and I love that, because you are doing something different with your life. You are traveling, you're experiencing, you're having fun. And I think that's part of the beauty to what you bring is you went through severe burnout, you understood it, you learned it, you were able to pick yourself up from it. Now you're helping other people, but you're literally enjoying life. And I think so many of us forget the beauty that life is, the beauty of being able to travel, the adventures of being able to be in other cultures. And that is part of calming down the nervous system, because we can't enjoy, these people who are tired and have a trip planned out minute to minute to minute to minute, and then perfect. If you have an itinerary, perfect. But if you're not enjoying it because you're so stressed from everything you've been doing, that's not the point of traveling either, because you're jumping right back into that stress mode when you come back, right?
and also, most people that I'm speaking to, they had got into the habit of 48 or 50 weeks a year, they're existing, they're coping, they're just keeping their head above water in order to enjoy those 2 weeks of holiday, or 4 weeks, depending on where you are in the world.
Mhm.
And um and it's just, did you really come here to do that? Is that why you came onto this earth? Because I mean, I work whenever I'm traveling, as long as I've got internet, which I make sure I have, I work full time, well, pretty much full time. Depends on how many exciting things there are to see nearby. But there's loads of people I like helping, so I'm always working, and then it's great. And then yesterday, for example, because I'm so in love with my life now, what a change from how it was. I saw a crow. It's just a crow, and I'm like, wow, look how majestic that crow is. Every feather on its wings was just incredible. And then the leaves on the trees, all the different colors, all the different shadows, and all the birds that I saw of all different shapes and sizes. And we live in an absolutely magnificent world. And if we're not enjoying it, then that's not why we came here. We came here to expand. We came here to, yes, enjoy those challenges, but in a way that was fun.
And I think we've forgotten about that. Jane, thank you so much for the conversation, for everything you're doing and everything you're helping, and literally reminding us life is meant to be fun, not stressed out. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I've loved this. Thank you very much, Angelica.
And we'll talk soon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching until the end. My question to you is, what is the one thing that you have learned from today's video that you can apply exactly today? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go catch our next video.